Welcome. If you found your way here tonight, it's probably because some part of you needed a little quiet. Maybe the day was too long, or too loud, or too full of things that asked too much of you. Maybe your mind is still moving, even though your body is ready to rest. Whatever brought you here, you are welcome exactly as you are. Tonight, we're going to spend some time together in a very gentle place, drifting slowly through the world of the most remarkable, most intelligent animals on Earth. Not in a way that will startle or excite you, but in the softest, most unhurried way possible. Just soft narration, quiet facts, and the deep, steady feeling of nature moving all around you. Drop a comment and let me know what time it is, where you are, and if there's a thought or intention you'd like to carry into sleep tonight. And if this space gives you comfort, consider subscribing so you can always find your way back here whenever rest feels hard to reach. Now, let's begin. Take a moment to settle. Let your body find the surface beneath you and allow it to hold your weight completely. There's nothing you need to do right now, nowhere you need to go. Let your breathing slow, just a little. Let the space around you become quieter. You are safe, you are still, and tonight, you are going to rest. The open ocean, somewhere far from any coast, in water so deep and so still that the surface reflects the stars like a second sky, a sperm whale is resting. She is enormous, longer than a city bus, heavier than anything you have likely stood beside in your life. And yet, she moves through the water with the same kind of unhurried grace that clouds have when they drift on a windless afternoon. She is one of the most intelligent creatures to have ever lived on this planet. Her brain is the largest of any animal known to science. And inside that great, warm brain, something is happening that researchers have only recently begun to understand. She is dreaming. Sperm whales, when they sleep, float vertically near the surface of the ocean. Their massive bodies hang still in the water, barely moving, tails pointed gently downward, heads just breaking the surface where the air meets the sea. They look, in these moments, like great dark sculptures, slowly turning with the current. Scientists who first observed this behavior described it as one of the most unusual and serene sights in all of marine biology. These whales, they discovered, enter into a deep, slow phase of rest, unlike almost anything else in the animal kingdom. Their heartbeats slow, their breathing becomes long and measured, and their enormous minds, so full of memory and recognition and social understanding, seem to gently release the world for a while. Sperm whales live in complex family groups led by elder females. They recognize one another as individuals. They have dialects, patterns of clicks and rhythmic sounds called codas. Namar vary from family to family, almost like accents, or like the particular lilt of a language spoken in one valley and not another. Young whales learn the dialect of their family, and they carry it with them all their lives. When two sperm whales meet, they exchange codas, and those sounds contain information, history, identity. They are, in every meaningful sense, speaking to one another. And when they rest, floating there beneath the stars, These vast and ancient beings are simply resting. The ocean holds them. The dark water, 4 kilometers deep beneath their tails, does not disturb them. The world turns slowly. The stars move across the water, and the whales remain still. African elephants on the wide, dry plains of East Africa. In the hour just before the sun comes up, a herd of elephants is walking. They move in the particular unhurried way that elephants have always moved, placing their great feet softly on the red earth, swinging their trunks gently at their sides. The youngest calves stay close to the legs of the adults, nearly invisible in the gray pre-dawn light, tucked in close and safe. And at the front of the group, a very old female is choosing the direction. She is perhaps 60 years old. She has walked this land for decades. She knows where the water is, even when the water holes look dry. She knows the rains before they arrive. She knows her family and has known them all her life. Elephants are among the most emotionally intelligent animals on Earth. They grieve their dead, standing for hours, sometimes days, beside the bones of those they have lost, touching them gently with the sensitive tips of their trunks, making low sounds deep in their chests that human researchers have struggled to describe. They recognize themselves in mirrors. They help individuals from other species who are in distress. They have been observed protecting injured animals, birds, other mammals, even people, when those animals were in danger. They do these things without hesitation and without any apparent reward. An elephant's memory, so often described in simple terms, is actually something much more intricate and moving than the familiar phrase suggests. These animals remember other elephants they have not seen in decades. They remember places they visited only once, long ago. They remember kindnesses. When elephants who have been separated for years are reunited, they greet one another with what can only be described as joy, spinning, vocalizing, reaching out to touch, intertwining trunks, leaning against each other. The reunion is unmistakable. It is real. It is recognizable to anyone who has ever felt the particular warmth of seeing someone they love after a long time away. The herd continues walking in the gray morning. The oldest female stops once, lifts her trunk slightly, tests the air. Then she walks on, and the others follow. Somewhere ahead of them, she knows, there is water. Japanese macaques, high in the mountains of Nagano, Japan, where the winters are long and the snow lies thick across everything. There are pools of naturally heated water that rise from deep within the earth. The water in these pools is warm. Warm in the way that a bath is warm, steaming gently into the cold air above it, mineral-rich and calm. And in these pools, surrounded by snow, groups of Japanese macaques are resting. The macaques, also called snow monkeys, sit in the water with an expression of absolute contentment. Their eyes are heavy. Their russet fur is dark and wet around their shoulders. But the rest of them is submerged and warm. Some of them have their eyes closed. Some are grooming one another with slow, automatic movements, fingers moving through fur in that patient, rhythmic way that primates have. Small infants cling to their mothers' chests and drift, warm and rocking slightly. Japanese macaques are extraordinarily capable learners. Researchers who have studied them for decades have documented cultural behaviors, things that one individual invented and then spread through the group until they became tradition. In the 1950s, a young female macaque named Emo was observed washing sweet potatoes in the stream before eating them. Within years, others in her group had begun to do the same thing. The behavior spread, and then she began washing them in the ocean, salting them, the researchers noted with amazement. The other macaques learned this too. Culture, in this sense, is not exclusively a human invention. It is something that happens wherever intelligent social animals observe one another, learn from one another, and pass knowledge forward across generations. The macaques in the hot springs carry a long tradition of comfort seeking. They have done this for over half a century now. And on a cold winter morning, sitting together in that warm, steaming water, with the mountains white all around them, and the snow still falling in large, slow flakes, they are simply at rest. The Amazon rainforest. In the deep interior of the Amazon basin, where the canopy is so thick that the forest floor receives only a thin, green filtered version of sunlight, the night is filled with sound. Frogs call from the edges of still pools. Insects layer their voices into something enormous and continuous, a kind of steady, living hum that the forest breathes out in all directions. And somewhere far above, in the highest branches where the air is warmer and the sky is open, a sleeping creature is dreaming. The kinkajou is a small, honey-colored mammal related to raccoons, and it spends its nights moving through the upper canopy with remarkable agility, feeding on fruit and nectar with a tongue so long it can reach deep into flowers. But in the quiet hours before dawn, the kinkajou stops. It curls itself into a tight ball in a hollow branch or a dense cluster of leaves, wraps its prehensile tail around itself, tucks its face into its own soft fur, and sleeps. It is perhaps one of the forest's most peaceful sleepers, utterly still, utterly at rest, trusting completely in the dense and sheltering canopy around it. Below it, in the darkness between the roots of an enormous fig tree, a tapir is grazing. The tapir is one of the oldest types of large mammals still living on Earth, a creature that has changed remarkably little over millions of years. It moves slowly and with great deliberateness, using its flexible snout to reach leaves and fallen fruit. It is entirely unhurried. It has all the patience of something that has outlasted entire ages of the world. The forest around the tapir is always moving, always alive, always layered with sound and breath and growth. Somewhere nearby, a small group of capuchin monkeys is sleeping in a huddle high above the forest floor. Capuchins are among the most innovative primates in the New World. They use tools, they remember individuals, they have complex social lives governed by rules and relationships that take years to fully understand. But tonight, they are simply sleeping, pressed together for warmth in the forgiving branches of a cecropia tree, their small fingers loosely curled, their eyes completely closed. The rain, when it comes, begins with a few drops and then becomes everything at once. It moves across the canopy in a great, rushing wave, and the sound of it, the enormous, layered, endlessly varied sound of rain falling on 10,000 species of leaf, is one of the most complex and peaceful sounds in the natural world. It continues for a long time, and the forest receives it in silence. Bottlenose dolphins. In the warm, shallow waters of a protected bay, just as the evening light turns the water from blue to gold, a pod of bottlenose dolphins is moving in slow, loose circles. They surface together, breathing in that smooth, synchronized way they have, a sound like a gentle exhale, repeated at long and even intervals. Then they slip beneath again, moving in easy curves through the warm water. Dolphins sleep in a way that would seem strange to us, but which is in its own way deeply peaceful. They engage in what researchers call unihemispheric sleep, resting only half of their brain at a time, while the other half remains active enough to control breathing and watch for danger. They float near the surface in this state, sometimes resting there for hours, their bodies moving only slightly with the gentle push of the water. They are at rest, and yet not fully asleep. Or perhaps they are in a kind of sleep that is deeper than what we know, a different kind of rest that does not require the full surrender of consciousness. Dolphins have names for one another, not names in the way we understand naming, not words, but signature whistles that each individual develops in the first months of life and uses for the rest of it. When a dolphin calls another dolphin by name, using that individual's signature whistle, the named dolphin will turn and respond. Researchers have recorded dolphins calling out the signatures of companions who are out of sight, as if searching for them, as if calling out in the water and listening for an answer. A mother dolphin and her calf move close together through the golden water. The calf is still young enough that it swims in its mother's slipstream, carried slightly forward by the movement of her body through the water. This is called drafting, and it allows the calf to rest even while they are traveling. The two of them surface together, breathe together, and sink again together. The rest of the pod moves slowly around them, their shapes dark and gentle in the fading light. The Great Barrier Reef, along the northeastern coast of Australia, stretching for over 2,000 kilometers through clear, warm water. The Great Barrier Reef exists as a living city. It is the largest structure ever built by living organisms on this planet, so large it can be seen from space. And it is alive in every direction, alive in ways that are difficult to fully comprehend. Coral, of course, forms its foundation, but coral is not merely rock or plant. It is an animal living in vast collaborative colonies, filtering the water, building upward and outward in the slow geological time that corals understand. Among the reef's inhabitants, the giant Pacific octopus is among the most alien and the most fascinating. The octopus has no bones, no shell, and no fixed shape. It can squeeze itself through any opening larger than its beak, which is, in most cases, the only rigid part of its body. It can change color and texture in less than a second, shifting from bright orange to speckled brown to smooth cream, perfectly replicating the appearance of the surface it rests upon. It can mimic other animals. It can remember. It can solve problems. Researchers who keep octopuses in aquariums describe each one as having a distinct personality. Some are curious and will approach new objects immediately. Some are cautious and watch from a distance before approaching. Some are bold and will reach out to interact with people. Some, clearly, are shy. One aquarium in New Zealand reported that an octopus named Inky escaped from his tank one night by squeezing through a gap at the top, crossing the floor of the facility, and sliding down a drain pipe that led to the ocean. He was never recovered. In the water of the reef at night, an octopus is resting in a crevice it has chosen carefully, its arms curled loosely around itself, its body pale and soft in the dim water. It is still. It is watching, in the particular way octopuses watch, through widely spaced eyes that see the world differently than we do, taking in light and shape and movement in ways we are still learning to understand. The reef breathes around it. The water moves in long, slow pulses, and the octopus rests. Chimpanzees. In the forests of Uganda, in a valley so green it seems to generate its own light, a community of chimpanzees is settling in for the night. Building a nest is something chimpanzees do every single evening. They bend and layer branches and leaves into a platform high in the trees, sometimes lined with softer vegetation, and they sleep in this nest until morning. Each chimpanzee builds its own nest, though mothers sleep with their young children until the children are old enough to build for themselves. It takes only a few minutes, and the result is something remarkably deliberate. A made bed, a chosen place, a prepared space for rest. Chimpanzees share approximately 98.7% of their DNA with humans. They laugh, not in exactly the way we laugh, but in a recognizable exhaling, panting way that is unmistakably about joy and play. They experience what researchers describe as grief. They form lasting friendships. They go to war. They reconcile after conflicts with touches and embraces. They use tools, not one or two tools, but a whole toolkit of specific objects for specific purposes. Sticks for termite, fishing, leaves for collecting water, stones for cracking nuts, even spears shaped from branches for hunting. A young chimpanzee named Kakama is sitting very still in his mother's arms. He is 4 years old, and he has not yet learned to build his own nest. His mother, Kiwaya, is grooming him with infinite patience, parting his fur section by section, examining it, picking out any debris, moving steadily across his back and arms while he drowses. Grooming in chimpanzee society is not simply about cleanliness. It is one of the primary ways that individuals express and maintain their relationships. It releases endorphins. It is, in the most literal and chemical sense, comforting. The valley settles into darkness around the community. Frogs begin to call at the forest margins. The trees hold the families in their branches, and the night passes softly, and the chimpanzees sleep. Crows. In a city park in the northern United States, where the maples are losing their leaves and the days are growing shorter, a group of American crows is gathering in the late afternoon. They come from different directions, calling to one another as they arrive, and they settle in the trees along the edge of the park in a loose, communicative group. They are not always friends. Crows have individual relationships that are complex and often long-lasting. They remember faces, both the faces of other crows and the faces of humans, for years. They hold what researchers have called grudges, but also form something that looks very much like gratitude. There are documented cases of crows who have received unexpected help from humans. A released trapped bird, an animal rescued from a dangerous situation, and who have later brought small objects to that person. Buttons, glass beads, a piece of foil shaped into something almost like a present. Researchers studying this behavior are careful about the language they use, but the behavior itself is consistent. The crow remembers, and the crow returns. Crows also mourn. When a crow dies, others gather around the body, They do not touch it. They stand near it for a period of time, sometimes quite a long time, and they are quiet. Researchers believe this behavior may serve to help the surviving crows understand the danger that caused the death. But the behavior also looks, and perhaps is, something more than that. It looks like the recognition of loss. Tonight, the crows in the park are settling into their roosting posture. They fluff their feathers against the October cold, tuck their heads slightly, and become still. They will sleep here together through the night, dozens of them, sometimes hundreds in larger gatherings, shoulder to shoulder in the branches, their intelligent eyes closed. The park will be quiet around them. The leaves will fall in the dark, slowly, onto the grass below, and the crows will sleep. Wolves. In a valley in Yellowstone National Park, where the grass is long and gold, and the river runs clear over smooth stones, a wolf pack is resting in the afternoon warmth. They are sprawled across the ground in the easy, complete way that wolves rest, on their sides, on their backs, paws loose, tails relaxed, muscles entirely at ease. Some of them are sleeping deeply. Some are drowsing with their heads lifted slightly, eyes half open, watching the surrounding area without urgency or alarm. At the center of the group, the alpha female is lying with her chin on her paws, looking out at the valley. She is the one who holds the pack's social fabric together. Wolves in the wild are not the rigid dominance hierarchies they were once imagined to be. A pack is, more than anything else, a family. Parents and pups and siblings and cousins, all of them bound together by familiarity and shared experience and the particular care that comes from long association. The alpha pair are, most often, simply the parents. Their authority comes less from dominance than from experience, and from being the ones who know the land the best. Wolves communicate in dozens of ways. Through howling, which carries across the landscape for miles, and through whimpers and growls and yips, and through body language so expressive that researchers can read their moods and intentions from photographs taken at a distance. They howl together before a hunt, which researchers believe may serve to synchronize the group and build collective energy. They howl in response to one another across distances when the pack is separated. And they howl sometimes alone at night in a way that has no obvious function except perhaps simply to speak, to send a voice out into the dark and listen for a reply. In the valley, the pack rests on. The river moves past them, sparkling and cold. The afternoon clouds build slowly on the mountains to the west. A hawk circles high above, and the wolves below do not stir. They are resting. They are warm. They are together. Elephants. Again. By the water. At the edge of a broad, shallow watering hole in southern Africa, just before sunset, a family of elephants is drinking. The matriarch stands with her feet in the shallow water at the edge of the pool, drawing long, slow trunkfuls of water and releasing them into her mouth with that familiar, fluid sound. Around her, the young ones push forward, competing gently for space at the water's edge, and the older animals wait with the kind of patience that seems to come naturally to creatures who have lived long in a large world. There is a calf, the youngest in the group, perhaps 3 months old, who has not yet mastered the use of her trunk for drinking. She kneels at the water's edge and drinks directly with her mouth, like a dog, splashing and inefficient, getting more water on her face than into it. The adults around her don't hurry her. Her mother stands close, keeping the other animals from jostling her, and the calf drinks in her own time and at her own pace. Elephants are one of the only non-human animals that have been observed engaging in what researchers call consolation behavior. When a member of the group is upset or distressed after a conflict or during a frightening situation, other elephants will come to that individual and touch them, rumble softly, and stay close until the distress passes. They check on each other. They reach out with their trunks and touch faces and mouths, a gesture that, in elephant language, is one of the deepest forms of reassurance. They know when a member of the group is suffering, and they respond to that suffering with contact and presence. The sun touches the horizon, and the water of the pool turns orange and pink. The matriarch lifts her head and rumbles, a sound so low it is almost below the range of human hearing, and the family begins to move, turning away from the water and walking slowly into the evening landscape. The youngest calf runs to keep up, ears spread wide, trunk swinging. The others close around her as they go. The Pacific rainforest, along the coast of the Pacific Northwest, where the land meets the sea in a place of perpetual mist and extraordinary green. Old-growth temperate rainforest stretches inland over the hills. The trees here, Sitka spruce, red cedar, Douglas fir, are among the largest living things on Earth. Some of them are 1,000 years old. Their trunks are so wide that 10 people holding hands cannot reach around them. Their bark is thick and deeply furrowed, and it holds a world within itself. Mosses, lichens, small ferns, insects, salamanders, all of them making a life in the bark of a single tree. Ravens live in this forest, and ravens are among the most complex problem solvers in the avian world. They can plan ahead, carrying food to a particular location in anticipation of needing it later, a behavior that requires the ability to imagine a future that has not yet arrived. They can reason by analogy. They understand cause and effect. They play, not just as young animals do in exploring their environment, but as adults, inventing and reinventing games with no apparent purpose except for the pleasure of playing them. Ravens have been observed sliding down snow-covered slopes repeatedly, flying back up and sliding down again with no possible function, other than what, in any other context, we would simply call fun. In the dim interior of the old-growth forest, where the light filters through multiple canopy layers and arrives at the forest floor as something barely brighter than twilight. At midday, the raven pair have their nest in the crown of a massive cedar. They have used this same nest for years, adding to it each season, weaving new sticks and moss and bark into its edges. It is an enormous, deep structure now, shaped by a decade of small additions. The female is there now, settled low into the nest, her wings slightly spread, her head turned sideways, and tucked gently into her feathers. The rain comes in from the ocean, moving through the forest in long, sweeping curtains, and the cedars take it in without complaint. The rain sounds different here than it does in open places, filtered through so many layers of leaves and needles and moss. It arrives at the forest floor as a soft, continuous, deeply complex sound that is almost like music, like something you could sleep to. Humpback whales, in the waters between Hawaii and Alaska, where the Pacific deepens to abyssal trenches, and the sea is cold and full of the particular quiet that belongs to deep ocean places, a humpback whale is singing. The song rises through the water in long, sweeping phrases, moans and groans, and high, ethereal cries, and deep, resonant pulses that carry for dozens, sometimes hundreds of kilometers through the dark water. The song is complex. It changes. It evolves over the course of a season, and all the male humpbacks in a given ocean will learn the new phrases as they spread from one singer to the next, like a melody moving through a choir, until everyone is singing a version of the same song. What the song communicates, exactly, science is still working to understand. But the humpback has been singing like this for longer than humans have existed to hear it. The song has been rising through these waters for hundreds of thousands of years, changing and returning and changing again. A mother humpback and her calf are traveling north. The calf is 3 months old, enormous already, nearly 5 meters long, and gaining hundreds of kilograms each week on its mother's extremely rich milk. The two of them move together in the deep water, the calf tucked close to its mother's body, surfacing together in the long, slow breathing rhythm of large whales at rest while traveling. The cow is gentle with her calf, pushing it gently with her flipper when it strays too far, covering it from below with her body when they rest near the surface. Humpbacks are curious about boats and have been since the earliest days of human seafaring. They have been documented investigating ships, approaching people in the water, lifting kayaks gently on their backs. Researchers who study them in the wild describe individual whales they have come to know over years, recognizable by their markings, by their behavior, by the particular way they move through the water. Some whales allow closer approaches than others. Some seem to seek out human contact. All of them are, in their enormous and unhurried way, aware. The ocean at night, far from any coast, far from any light except the stars and the dim bioluminescence of the water itself, the ocean at night is a place of extraordinary peace. The surface moves in long, slow swells, each one perhaps a meter or two in height, but gentle, rolling, the kind of movement that is like breathing made into landscape. The stars overhead are so numerous and so bright that the horizon between water and sky becomes unclear, and the whole dark world seems to glow faintly. Deep below the surface, far below the reach of any light from above, creatures are moving in the total darkness. Some of them are familiar in form: fish, squid, crustaceans. But they exist in a world so alien to our experience that they seem to belong to imagination rather than reality. There are fish here that carry their own light, generating bioluminescence in patterns that scientists are still cataloging. There are squid with eyes the size of dinner plates, evolved to gather the faintest traces of light in the deepest water. There are animals that have never been seen alive, whose existence we know only from the fragments that occasionally drift toward the surface or wash onto distant shores. And yet, strange as they are simply living. They are breathing, eating, moving through their world, finding their places in the vast and intricate network of ocean life. A deep-sea anglerfish hangs in the dark water, perfectly still, the bioluminescent lure on its head glowing with a steady, patient pulse. A small fish, drawn by the light, drifts closer. The anglerfish waits. It has all the time in the world. The ocean is dark and enormous and full of the particular patience of creatures who have never known hurry. On the surface, far above, a star falls, a long white scratch across the sky, and the ocean takes it in without comment. Capuchin monkeys. In the Atlantic coastal forest of Brazil, where the trees press close and the air is warm and damp and rich with the smell of soil and green things, a small group of capuchin monkeys is making their way through the middle canopy. They move with the quick, precise agility that characterizes small monkeys. Hand, foot, testing each branch before committing their weight, leaping small gaps with an ease that looks casual and effortless. They are sociable. They keep track of one another with small calls and glances. They are heading at this particular moment toward a group of palm trees where they know nuts can be found. Capuchins are the most tool-using primates in the New World, and what they do with stones and nuts is both practical and impressive. They carry specific stones, heavy, dense stones, chosen apparently for their weight and smoothness, to particular flat rocks that serve as anvils, and they crack open palm nuts with dozens of repeated blows that sometimes require a great deal of effort. This is not instinct. It is a technique. It is learned from watching others, practiced over months of trial and error, passed from older individuals to younger ones, across generations. Researchers studying long-term populations of capuchins have found that different groups have different tool-using traditions, different preferred stone types, different techniques, different anvil sites, and that these traditions are stable across decades. One of the older females in the group carries a stone under her arm. As she moves through the trees, she has carried the stone to the anvil site and back so many times that the route is completely habitual. She knows every branch, every gap, every shortcut through the canopy. When she arrives at the flat stone, she settles herself with the particular settled patience of long practice, places her nut, lifts her stone, and begins. The sound of stone on stone carries through the forest, rhythmic and deliberate, and the other capuchins gather nearby to watch. Some of them are young, still learning. They watch closely, their bright eyes tracking her movements with the intense, focused attention of students in the presence of a teacher. Australian dolphins. In the shallow, warm water of Shark Bay in Western Australia, where the sea is so clear and so calm that the sandy bottom is visible in 10 meters of water, a small group of bottlenose dolphins is engaging in a behavior that has been the subject of scientific study for decades. They are using tools. Specifically, they are wearing sponges. Certain dolphins in Shark Bay have been observed breaking off marine sponges from the seafloor and wearing them on the tips of their rostrums, their beaks, as they forage along the bottom. The sponge seems to protect the delicate skin of the rostrum from abrasion as the dolphin pokes into rocky and coralline substrate, searching for fish. This tool use is not universal in the population. It appears to be practiced primarily by females and is passed from mother to daughter. A cultural tradition maintained by social learning in a non-human animal. The water in Shark Bay is perfectly still this morning. The dolphins move along the bottom in the slow, searching way of foragers, methodical, patient, following the contours of the substrate. They surface to breathe every few minutes, making that smooth, quiet exhale, and then they dive again. The light comes through the water in long, shifting columns, moving with the surface ripple, and the sand below is white and clean. It is an entirely peaceful place. Higher up in the water column, an older female is resting. She floats motionless, her body vertical, tail pointed down, her rostrum just above the surface. Her breathing is long and slow. A small fish investigates the shadow she casts on the sand beneath her. The old female doesn't stir. She is resting deeply in the warm and quiet water. Elephants of the forest. In the dense lowland rainforests of Central Africa, a species of elephant moves through the trees in near perfect silence. The forest elephant is smaller than its savanna cousin, with straighter tusks and rounder ears, and it has adapted over countless generations to life in the closed canopy. It knows the forest the way the forest elephant has always known it, through generations of accumulated knowledge passed from mothers to daughters, a map held in memory, a network of paths and waterholes and fruiting trees maintained in the minds of the oldest females. Forest elephants are seed dispersers of extraordinary importance. They eat fruit and travel enormous distances, spreading the seeds of hundreds of plant species through the forest in their dung. Without the forest elephant, many tree species would struggle to reproduce successfully. The forest and the elephant have evolved together, each one shaping the other over millions of years, until they have become a single system, inseparable and mutual. A forest elephant is feeding quietly in a shaft of light that comes through a gap in the canopy, one of the small clearings that are created when a great tree falls, opening the roof of the forest temporarily to the sky. She is eating the leaves and bark of a small tree with focused, unhurried attention, pulling branches toward her with her trunk and stripping them methodically. Around her, the forest is alive with sound, birds, insects, frogs in a distant pool. But all of that sound is simply the background of her world. She has known it all her life. It is the sound of home. She feeds for a long time. The light changes as the sun moves slowly across the sky above the canopy, and when she is done, she stands still for a moment, her eyes soft and heavy, and then she moves on into the cool green dark. Sea otters. Off the coast of California, in the thick beds of kelp that grow just offshore, sea otters are floating on their backs in the afternoon sun. They have draped strands of kelp over themselves, anchoring themselves to the forest so that the gentle current doesn't carry them away while they sleep. They float there, motionless, round faces turned toward the sky, small paws resting on their chests, the kelp holding them loosely in place. Sea otters are one of the few non-primate mammals known to use tools regularly. They carry preferred stones in a skin pouch under each arm, a loose fold of skin near the armpit, and use these stones to crack open shellfish, mussels, and sea urchins on their chests as they float on their backs. Each otter has a favorite stone. They will carry a particularly effective stone for months, even years, bringing it with them wherever they go, storing it safely in their skin pockets between meals. There is a mother otter resting with her pup on her chest. The pup is very small, a few weeks old, and its fur is still so thick and trappy with air that it cannot dive even if it wants to, but bobs on the surface like a small, very fluffy cork. The mother keeps one paw on the pup as they both float, keeping it close, and she grooms it continuously, combing its fur with her fingers and her teeth to maintain the crucial air layer that keeps the pup warm, since sea otter pups cannot yet regulate their own body temperature. When she needs to dive, she wraps the pup in a strand of kelp first, so it stays in place while she is underwater. The kelp forest is dim and beautiful around them. The long amber strands rise from the sea floor and reach toward the light, swaying in a slow and continuous wave, and the water among them is full of the soft, filtered light of a California afternoon. It is quiet here, it is gentle, and the otters drift in it, patient and at rest. Wolves in winter. The forest in January is a different place. Snow lies thick between the trees, and the cold has simplified the landscape, stripped it of everything that is not essential. The tracks of animals cross and recross in the snow. Deer, rabbit, mouse, and here, the deep, clean prints of a wolf pack moving through the trees in single file, each wolf placing its foot in the track of the wolf before it, conserving energy on their way through the deep snow. The pack has been traveling since before dawn. They cover enormous distances when they are hunting, their long, efficient legs eating up the ground in a tireless, ground-covering trot that they can maintain for hours. But now, in the middle of the day, they have found a sheltered place, a south-facing slope where the snow is thinner and a few large boulders trap the thin winter sun, and they are resting. They have draped themselves over and around and among the boulders in the easy, boneless way of canids at rest, their thick winter fur making them large and round-looking against the snow. Wolves in a pack spend a great deal of time simply being together. They sleep together. They groom one another. They play, chasing and wrestling and stealing sticks in a way that is entirely reminiscent of the domestic dogs they closely resemble. They have inside relationships that last for years. Friendships between individuals that researchers who have spent decades with the same pack can trace and describe in detail. One wolf will always approach another wolf first when he wants to rest. Always that particular wolf. Always the same one. Something established between them years ago and maintained by habit and preference into the present. The winter sun is warm on the boulders. A wolf opens one golden eye, considers the world, and closes it again. The forest is quiet around the resting pack. Somewhere far off, ravens are calling. They often follow wolves, hoping to share in whatever the pack finds. But they are distant today, and the wolves don't stir. They sleep on. In the January cold, in the sheltered warmth of the rocks and one another. Elephants. It is always worth returning to elephants. The more you know about them, the more there seems to know. The more the distance between them and us seems like a difference of form and language rather than a difference of inner life. They are not us, but they are unmistakably someone. The family group is resting now. It is midday, and the heat of the African sun is at its most intense, and the elephants have moved into the shade of a large acacia tree where they stand loosely together, their bodies swaying slightly, fanning their enormous ears to circulate the air around their bodies. Some of them are touching. A trunk resting on a shoulder, bodies pressed lightly against one another. The calves are mostly sleeping, lying down in the shade, their small chests rising and falling. their ears twitching against the flies. The matriarch stands at the edge of the group, facing out. Her eyes are half closed. Her breathing is long and slow. She knows where the water is. She knows where the herd needs to be by evening. She knows each individual behind her, their personalities, their tendencies, their histories, the way you know the faces of everyone you have ever loved. She has been carrying this knowledge for 60 years. She will carry it until she cannot anymore, and then someone else will learn to carry it, slowly, over many years, through many seasons. She stands in the shade, and she breathes, and the long afternoon moves around her, the Arctic tundra. At the edge of summer in the far north, the tundra is briefly, brilliantly alive. The permafrost has thawed just at its surface, and the landscape blooms with low-growing flowers, purple saxifrage, Arctic poppy, cotton grass, and the air above the tundra is busy with birds that have traveled thousands of kilometers to breed in this brief season of light. The sun does not set here in midsummer. It circles the horizon in a slow, perpetual arc, and the tundra is lit in a golden light that lasts 24 hours. Among the birds of the tundra, the Arctic tern makes one of the most extraordinary journeys in the animal kingdom. It breeds in the Arctic summer and then migrates to the Antarctic for the southern hemisphere summer and then returns north again. In a single year, an Arctic tern may travel 70,000 kilometers, the equivalent of traveling around the Earth nearly twice. They do this their entire lives. Some individual terns live for 30 years, and in those 30 years, they travel a total distance equivalent to several round trips to the moon. They know the way. They know the winds. They carry a map in their bodies that we are only beginning to understand. But tonight, in the long golden light of an Arctic summer midnight, a tern is resting on the nest, a shallow scrape in the gravel, lined with a few feathers, containing 2 small eggs that are the color of the tundra itself. The tern is very still. Its red bill is tucked into its feathers. Its eyes are closed. The light plays across its white and silver wings, and the tundra is quiet around it, and the eggs are warm. Clark's nutcrackers. In the high elevation pine forest of the American West, a bird is doing something remarkable. A Clark's nutcracker, a medium-sized bird with a gray body and black and white wings, is harvesting pine seeds from a white bark pine cone with its long, strong bill, stuffing them with impressive speed into a special pouch beneath its tongue. It collects thousands of seeds, then it flies, sometimes many kilometers, and buries them in the ground in caches of a few seeds each, scattered across the landscape. It does this through the summer and fall, creating thousands of individual caches. And then, through the winter and the following spring, it finds and retrieves those caches using spatial memory. The nutcracker's spatial memory is extraordinary. It can recall the locations of thousands of buried caches months after burying them, even when the landscape is covered in snow and looks nothing like it did when the caches were made. Researchers who have studied this ability have described it as one of the most impressive examples of spatial memory in the animal kingdom. The bird doesn't guess. It remembers. It is late autumn now, and the nutcracker is in the trees near the snow line. The first snow of the year has fallen, thin and pale, and the bird moves through the branches with the quick confidence of an animal who knows exactly where it is going. It drops to the snow, pokes at the surface, retrieves something invisible to any other eye, and is gone again into the trees. It has work to do. It has been doing this work for years, and in its small, precise, efficient way, it holds the future of the white bark pine in the keeping of its remarkable mind, the forest at night. When the last light fades from the forest and darkness comes in completely, the forest does not fall silent. It changes sound. The birds quiet, and other voices take their place. The frogs begin, a great, layered, humid chorus in the lowlands and beside every pool and stream. The insects continue, as insects always do, their calls rising and falling in waves that move across the darkness like weather. Owls begin their soft assertions. Foxes bark once, distantly, and are not answered. And in the trees, the night animals are waking. The flying squirrel opens its wide, dark adapted eyes and peers from its hollow in a dead oak. It will glide tonight, spreading the membranes between its legs and arms and sailing through the dark forest in long, noiseless arcs, landing on one tree trunk and immediately scurrying to the far side of it, hiding its own silhouette from anything that might be watching from above. It is a small, perfect, unremarkable miracle. An animal built for darkness, built for silence, built for the space between things. A great horned owl is sitting on a branch above an open field at the forest's edge. It is entirely still. Its eyes are enormous, each eye as large in volume as a human eye, designed to gather every available photon of light and convert it to an image sharp enough to see a mouse moving in grass at 50 meters in near total darkness. The owl's ears are asymmetrically placed on its skull, which means it can determine the precise location of a sound in 3 dimensions, not just which direction, but exactly how far away and at what elevation. It can catch prey in complete darkness, navigating entirely by sound. The owl is sitting. It is not hunting at this moment. It is simply sitting, large and still and present, in the darkness of the field's edge. Its feathers are soft and perfectly arranged. Its talons grip the branch with unconscious precision. The field before it is empty. The stars are bright. The owl is at rest. Gorillas. In the misty highlands of Rwanda and Uganda, where the mountains rise above the cloud line and the vegetation is dense and old and smelling of cool rain, a family group of mountain gorillas is settling in for the evening. The silverback, the large male who leads the group, is building his night nest in a matter of minutes, bending and folding a wide circle of vegetation around himself with practiced ease. The females and youngsters are doing the same nearby. The youngest ones may sleep in their mothers' nests, tucked against warm bodies. Mountain gorillas are critically endangered. There are fewer than 1,000 of them remaining in the wild, all in a small range of mountains in the heart of Africa. They are our close relatives, sharing more than 98% of our DNA, and they are peaceful. Gorillas are not naturally aggressive. They spend their days feeding slowly through the forest, eating leaves and stems and fruit, traveling short distances, resting in the afternoon. Their lives have a quality of quietness, of unhurried attention to the immediate, that is easy to find beautiful. The silverback in Tambora is resting now, sitting back against a tree with his enormous arms hanging loose at his sides. He looks out at the gathering mist with an expression of calm attention. He is the center of his family's world, their protector, their navigator, the one they turn to when they are uncertain. He has held this role for years, and he knows it in the way you know a thing that has become so much a part of your life that you no longer think about it. He simply is what he is. He breathes in the mist. The night birds are beginning to call in the trees above him. The family settles around him in their nests, and the forest grows dark. Crows again. It bears returning to crows, because what they can do is so quietly remarkable that it seems to ask for more attention. They can remember and recognize human faces, not just distinguish between faces, but remember a specific face and its associated meaning for years. In studies where researchers wearing particular masks behaved in ways the crows found threatening, the crows remembered those masks and responded with alarm to anyone wearing them for years afterward. And even when the crows, who had the original experience, had taught their offspring to be wary of the same masks. This means crows transmit cultural information about specific threats, about specific individual humans, to their young. The children of a crow who was harassed by a person in a particular mask will be wary of that mask, even having never personally encountered it. They have been taught. This is not so different from the way human parents teach their children to be cautious of specific dangers. The specific knowledge passed forward because someone who knows something thinks the next generation should know it too. A crow in the winter park is doing something that looks like nothing, sitting on the cold concrete near a trash bin, turning a small object over and over in its bill. It is a bit of foil, shaped roughly into a ball. The crow puts it down, looks at it, picks it up again. A person walking past doesn't look at the crow. The crow watches the person go past, tracks them with a bright, focused eye. When the person is gone, the crow goes back to the foil. It turns it over one more time, then carries it to a crevice in the park wall and tucks it in. It is collecting things. Why exactly? Something we don't fully understand. But it is collecting things with intentionality and consistency, and that in itself seems worth noticing. The open ocean. Again, far out to sea, the sperm whale is still resting. She has been at the surface for a long time now, floating in that slow, vertical drift, her body barely rocking with the long swells. The stars above her are beginning to fade as the sky in the east takes on the very first suggestion of color. Not yet dawn, but the faintest announcement of it. She will dive soon. She will descend into the deep water where the giant squid live, 1,000 meters down or more, and she will hunt in the absolute darkness where only her own enormous clicks, the loudest sounds produced by any animal on Earth, light up the water in reflected sonar. She can hold her breath for up to 90 minutes. She knows the deep water as well as the surface. But for now, she is here. She floats. The water moves around her in long, slow swells. The stars above are enormous and quiet. She breathes. A young male sperm whale, perhaps 10 years old, is resting nearby. He is not yet old enough to venture into the waters where the adult males live, far north, far south, colder and lonelier. He is still with the family group. He floats a little apart from the females in that slightly separate way of adolescence everywhere, not quite fully belonging to either the world he came from or the world he's moving toward. The sky is lightening. On the horizon, barely visible, a seabird, a shearwater, is cutting low over the water in that particular effortless glide that shearwaters have, barely needing to move its wings at all, tilting from side to side above the swells. It does not see the whales, or perhaps it does, and simply accepts them as part of the ocean's furniture, unremarkable, as permanent as the water itself. The whale breathes once more. The day is coming. The ocean receives it. Chimpanzees, again. In the forest, the light is beginning. It comes through the canopy in the particular way that forest light always does, arriving in pieces, filtered, moving as the leaves move, never quite settling. The chimpanzees in their nests are beginning to stir. Some of them have been awake since before the light, lying still in their nests and listening to the forest morning come in around them. Kiwaya is the first to sit up. She is always the first. She sits in her nest and looks out at the forest with that particular primate attentiveness, quick, comprehensive, reading the environment in the same thorough and immediate way that the forest's other residents do. Her son Kakama is still asleep, curled against her side. She doesn't disturb him yet. The other adults are beginning to move. There are small vocalizations, soft, low sounds, greeting sounds, the particular quiet calls that mean something like good morning in the language of this community. One of the older males moves from his nest to a nearby branch and sits facing east, where the sky is brightening behind the hills. He pant hoots softly, a quieter version of the full call, almost private. And somewhere far away, another chimp answers. The forest morning is one of the most layered and complex acoustic environments in the natural world. Every species is calling in its register, at its time, in the way it has always called. The gibbons, if there were gibbons, there are not here, but elsewhere, would be filling the air with their operatic calls. Here, there are birds enough. They are already in full voice, dozens of species layering their songs until the air seems almost textured with sound. Kakama opens his eyes. He looks up at his mother with the immediate trust of a very young animal, and she smooths the fur on top of his head with one hand. He yawns widely, a huge pink-mouthed yawn showing all his teeth, and then he stretches, and then he is awake. The day begins. Humpback whales. Again. The song rises through the water in the deep blue morning. It has been rising since before midnight. The male has been singing for hours, stationary in the water, his body hanging diagonally, oriented toward the surface. The song comes in phrases, and the phrases repeat, and the repetition is meditative. The same long descending moan, the same percussive staccato burst, the same soaring high note, repeated and returned to like a chorus. It is one of the longest and most complex songs produced by any animal, and it changes constantly from season to season as new phrases spread through the population and old ones are dropped. The mother and calf are still traveling north. They are closer to Alaska now, and the water is colder and greener, full of the particular nutrients that make northern oceans among the most productive on Earth. The calf is growing faster than almost any other mammal, gaining weight at a rate that is almost hard to imagine, sustained by milk that is richer than cream. It is learning the shapes of this journey. It will make it again every year for the rest of its long life. South in winter, north in summer, south in winter, north in summer. The great seasonal rhythm of the humpback's world. The mother surfaces ahead of a swell, exhales in that long, dramatic spout that rises 5 or 6 meters in the cool northern air and dives again. The calf follows, its smaller spout puffing up behind hers. They disappear into the green water. For a while, there is nothing to see. The sea moves in long swells. A few seabirds sit on the water nearby, and then, far ahead, the mother surfaces again, and the calf comes up beside her, and they breathe. Wolves, springtime. The spring in Yellowstone is a loud and busy season after the long quiet of winter. The elk are calving on the open flats, and the bears have emerged, and the rivers are high and fast and loud with snowmelt. The wolf pack has pups. The alpha female has her litter in a den dug into the hillside. A simple, deep tunnel in the earth, just wide enough for her to turn around in, with a small chamber at the end where the pups sleep in a pile, warm and completely safe, smelling of milk and earth and wolf. The pups will not emerge from the den for weeks, but already their father and the other pack members bring food to the den site, regurgitating meat for the nursing mother, sitting near the den entrance with the patient. Attentive posture of animals who know something important is happening inside. When the pups finally emerge, blinking and tumbling in the spring sunlight, the whole pack will greet them. There will be what researchers describe as an outpouring of attention and affection. Every adult pressing in to sniff and nuzzle the new arrivals, the pups overwhelmed and joyful in equal measure. Pups learn almost everything from older wolves. They learn hunting by watching and by playing. The chasing, the pouncing, the coordinated herding are all rehearsed in games long before they are needed in earnest. They learn the territory by traveling it with the adults. They learn the social rules by trial and sometimes by error. And the older wolves correct them with remarkable patience, rarely with more force than necessary. A pup is sleeping in the den now. He is perhaps 3 weeks old. He has only just opened his eyes, and the world is still blurry and huge and full of warm things he hasn't yet found names for. He is asleep in the pile with his siblings, all of them breathing together, their small bodies twitching with the half-formed dreams of very young animals. His mother's heartbeat is nearby. The den smells of safety. The spring outside is bright and loud and alive, and he doesn't know it yet. The kelp forest. Off the coast of California, the kelp forest in the afternoon is a cathedral of amber light and gentle movement. The kelp, Macrocystis, the giant kelp, which can grow 1/2 meter in a single day in ideal conditions, rises from its holdfasts on the rocky bottom and extends to the surface and beyond, creating a vertical forest that is home to hundreds of species. Light comes through the canopy in the same way it does in a forest on land, filtered, dappled, in columns and shafts that shift as the surface above moves. A Garibaldi, the brilliant orange fish that is the state marine fish of California, moves between the kelp fronds with the slow confidence of a fish that has no predators of consequence in this territory. It is the exact color of an orange peel, vivid and unmistakable, and it patrols a particular section of the reef as if it owns it, which in every meaningful practical sense it does. Male Garibaldi are territorial and devoted fathers. They maintain and clean a nest site, attract females to lay eggs there, and guard the eggs aggressively until they hatch, returning year after year to the same site. A sea lion drifts down through the kelp in a long, corkscrewing spiral, a play dive, done for the pleasure of it. Its sleek body threading between the fronds without effort, blowing a stream of bubbles that rises in a silver column toward the light. The sea lion rights itself near the bottom, looks around, and rockets back up toward the surface. These dives have no purpose beyond what they appear to be: joy, play. The simple pleasure of moving through the water in a body built perfectly for it. The kelp moves. The light moves. The fish move through it all, unhurried, going about the quiet business of their lives in this underwater forest, which has been here for thousands of years and will, with care, be here for thousands more. Ravens. The two ravens who nest in the old cedar have been together for 7 years. They mate for life, or very nearly, and their bond is maintained through constant contact and interaction. They preen each other. They play together in the updrafts above the ridge, tumbling and rolling in moves that appear entirely purposeless, entirely joyful. They bring each other food, not as a purely practical matter, but as a gesture, a reinforcement of the pair bond that keeps them together through seasons and years. The raven's intelligence is difficult to overstate without sounding unscientific, but the documented behaviors are extraordinary. They plan for the future, carrying food to hiding places in anticipation of needing it later. They understand that other ravens may be watching when they hide food, and will pretend to hide food in one place while actually hiding it in another if they know they are being observed. This requires a theory of mind, an understanding that other individuals have their own knowledge and perspective, a cognitive ability once thought unique to humans and great apes. They are problem solvers of remarkable versatility. In one famous experiment, ravens were presented with a piece of meat hanging on a string from a perch, too long to pull up in one motion. The ravens had never encountered this setup before. After a brief observation period, several of them solved it immediately, using a step-by-step technique. Pull up a length of string, hold it with one foot, pull up more, hold it with the other foot, repeat until the food was within reach. The solution requires planning, not trial and error. It requires imagining the end point before you begin. The female raven is sitting on the nest now. The male is perched on a branch above her, looking out over the misty forest. He is very still. He is, in his own way, keeping watch. Below the cedar, the ferns are wet with rain, and the light in the forest is the particular soft gray of an overcast Pacific morning. Everything is quiet. The male raven closes his eyes. The rainforest at dusk. As the light fades from the top of the Amazon canopy, the day shift is ending and the night shift is beginning. The macaws, who have been calling and flying above the canopy since morning, are settling toward their roost sites, heading for particular trees, particular branches, familiar companions. The toucans, who have been sitting in the high branches with their absurd and spectacular bills, are going quiet. The monkeys are finding their sleeping places, and the night begins its own calling. The nightjars, camouflaged against every surface, begin their churring, repetitive songs. The tree frogs, which spent the day motionless and almost invisible against their chosen bark or leaf, are beginning to move toward the water. Insects that are specific to the darkness, Moths, beetles, walking sticks of magnificent strangeness are beginning to emerge. The poison dart frog, so bright it seems almost artificial in the daylight, is now too small to see in the darkness. But it is awake, moving through the leaf litter in its particular deliberate way, hunting. Its brilliant coloration, red, blue, yellow, in patterns that vary by species and even by population, is a warning. It is advertising its toxicity. And in the darkness, the advertisement is irrelevant. Only in the light does color carry meaning. In the dark, it is just a small animal moving through a large forest, going about its business, as it has always done. A large walking stick. An insect. So perfectly camouflaged that it is essentially invisible until it moves, is making its slow way along a branch. It moves with a particular swaying gait that mimics the movement of a twig in a breeze. Even in motion, it is nearly impossible to see. It has been in the same tree for days. Tonight, for reasons known only to the internal logic of its remarkable body, it is moving to a different branch. The forest receives the night without complaint. It is always doing this, changing, shifting, adapting the register of its life to the light available, cycling through the full round of its inhabitants in the long rotation of every 24 hours. It has been doing this for tens of millions of years. The forest does not hurry. Humpback whales. Song. The male humpback's song has been going on for 9 hours. He is south of Hawaii, in water that is warm and deep and blue, and he has been singing without stopping since the previous afternoon. The song is exactly the same as the songs of the other males in the area. They all learned it together, or learned it from one another, in the way that humpback songs spread through a population. But each male's voice is slightly his own, slightly different in timbre and emphasis, the way that humans speaking the same language in the same dialect will still sound slightly different from one another. Researchers who have studied humpback song have noted that it is structured in a way that has some formal similarities to human music. It has phrases, themes, patterns that repeat and vary and return. It has rhythm. It is something that functions like rhyme, in that repeated sonic patterns serve to mark boundaries and aid memory. The whales are not composing music in the way that a human composer does, but they are producing organized, patterned, evolving sound that has some of the structural properties that make human music meaningful. The song rises through the water in all directions. It travels for hundreds of kilometers in the warm, layered water of the Pacific. Other whales hear it. Some of them answer. The ocean, in these months, is full of song. Male humpbacks spread across the wintering grounds, each one singing his version of the season's song, the whole thing evolving slowly as new phrases propagate and old ones fade, like a conversation that has been going on for longer than anyone can remember. The night above the ocean is full of stars. The water is dark and warm and moving. And below the surface, the singing continues. Japanese macaques, snowfall. In the mountains of Nagano, the snow is falling again. It has been snowing off and on for 3 days, and the landscape has become something pure and simplified. White ground, white branches, the dark vertical lines of the cedar trunks, the only contrast. The hot spring pools rise from the earth as they always do, regardless of the snow above, and their heat creates a zone of warmth that the macaques have learned to value. An old female, macaque, is soaking in the outer pool. She is perhaps 25 years old, which is elderly for a macaque in the wild. Her face is deeply lined, her red face weathered, and she moves more slowly than the younger animals. But she has access to the best spots in the pool, the warmest, most sheltered areas, because she has earned it. She is a high-ranking female, and her daughters and granddaughters are in the pool with her, and the young males keep a respectful distance. One of her granddaughters, a 2-year-old, has fallen asleep while sitting in the water. Her small head droops toward her chest, then jerks back up. She drowses again, droops again. Her grandmother watches with what appears to be a complete lack of concern. This has happened before. It will happen again. The granddaughter is safe. The water is warm. The snow falls on the surface of the pool and disappears. The old female closes her eyes. Around her, the pool holds its warmth against the cold, and the snow continues to fall, and the mountain is very quiet. Octopus, tide pool. In a tide pool on the Oregon coast, where the Pacific comes in twice a day and retreats twice a day, leaving behind a temporary, highly concentrated world of life in the rock hollows, a small octopus has made its home in a crevice just above the low tide line. It is not a large octopus, perhaps the size of a human hand, with arms about 20 centimeters long. But it is extraordinarily capable for an animal that will live only a year or two. The tide pool octopus has been documented by researchers as an organized animal. It maintains a midden, a pile of shells and rocks outside its den, the discarded remains of meals and materials it has collected. The midden is specific to each individual octopus. It reflects not just what it has eaten, but also how it has arranged its space. Some individuals seem to prefer particular kinds of shells. Some stack them in ways that look almost deliberate. This octopus is hunting now. It moves across the bottom of the pool with liquid ease, its body flowing over rocks, matching their color and texture as it goes. Gray where the rock is gray, spotted where the rock is patterned, smooth where the rock is smooth. It pauses. It waits. Its eyes, intelligent, wide, alien, are fixed on a small crab that has not yet noticed the rock beside it, has become more interested in it. The octopus is still for a long time. The tide pool is still around it. The water above is clear and cold. And then, in a single, perfectly timed motion, it moves. The Great Plains. In the center of North America, where the land is wide and flat, and the sky above it is the largest sky in the world, a prairie dog town extends for hundreds of meters in every direction. Prairie dogs, which are not dogs at all, but large social ground squirrels, live in an elaborate system of underground tunnels, each one designed with specific chambers, sleeping areas, nursery areas, listening areas near entrances where a lookout can detect predators above without exposing itself. Prairie dogs have one of the most complex communication systems of any non-human animal. They have specific alarm calls for different predators. Not just a general alarm, but specific calls that encode information about the size, color, and shape of the predator, and how fast it is moving. When researchers played recordings of alarm calls back to prairie dogs in different experimental conditions, the prairie dogs responded differently to calls that described large predators versus small ones, fast ones versus slow ones. They have, in effect, specific words for specific things. A prairie dog is sitting at its burrow entrance, shoulders just above the ground, facing into the wind. It is the afternoon sentinel, the animal whose job for the next hour or so is to watch the sky and the grass while the others feed. It sits very still. Its nose moves constantly, reading the air. Its eyes scan in a particular systematic pattern. Sky, near grass, far grass, sky again, that researchers who have watched prairie dogs for years have described as clearly deliberate. The grass around the town bends in the wind. A red-tailed hawk is circling high above, not hunting or not actively hunting, just riding the thermals in wide, slow circles. The sentinel prairie dog tracks it with its eyes. It does not call. The hawk is too far away and too high to be an immediate threat, but it watches. It keeps watching the wide, slow river. In the interior of South America, where the Pantanal spreads across the landscape in the world's largest tropical wetland, a giant river otter is resting on a log at the water's edge. Giant otters are the largest otters in the world, up to nearly 2 meters long, with a loud, complex vocal repertoire and a social life built around family groups of up to 10 individuals. They are charismatic and bold, and entirely unafraid of most things, including boats and researchers who come to study them. The family group has a territory along a stretch of the river that they have defended for years. They know every bend in the water, every log and sandbar and deep pool, every good fishing spot. They sleep together on a flat bank they have cleared of vegetation, and they communicate constantly through chirps and coos and barks, and a sound that researchers describe as a hum bark, which seems to function as a greeting. When the family reconvenes after any separation, they go through a lengthy greeting ceremony, pressing together and vocalizing enthusiastically, before settling back into the quiet rhythms of the group. The otter on the log has been fishing for most of the morning and is tired. He's caught several fish, eating them at the surface with his head held up and his paws around the fish, in the characteristic eating while sitting upright posture that giant otters have. Now he is resting, stretched out on the sun-warmed log, his long body perfectly relaxed, one hind foot trailing in the water. The sun is warm. The river is slow and brown. The trees on the far bank are reflected perfectly in the still water near the shore. He closes his eyes. The river moves past him. The afternoon is long and warm. Gorillas. Afternoon. The mountain gorilla family has been feeding since morning, and now they are resting in the afternoon in the particular resting style of gorillas, entirely, completely, without apparent reservation. The silverback is on his back with his arms flung out, feet in the air, looking for all the world like someone who has decided that this patch of vegetation is exactly the right place to stop, and nothing further will be required of him today. His great chest rises and falls. His eyes are closed. Around him, the females are in various states of repose. One is nursing her infant, sitting against a tree trunk, looking out at the forest with a particular distant, meditative expression of nursing mothers across many species. The infant's eyes are closed. Another female is grooming a juvenile who is clearly not interested in being groomed, but is tolerating it, sitting with the resigned body language of a child being combed. 2 young males are playing nearby. wrestling in the slow, gentle way of gorilla play. More like a slow dance than any kind of fighting, careful with each other's smaller bodies, stopping whenever one of them makes the small sound that means that is too much. Gorillas spend up to 14 hours a day resting and feeding, which sounds like a great deal, but which makes sense for animals who subsist primarily on plant matter and must spend a lot of time processing large volumes of low-energy food. They are not lazy. They are adapted. Their bodies and their days are organized around the specific requirements of being a gorilla in the mountains. The silverback makes a slow, deep, chest-rumbling sound. Not the famous chest beat, no. Nothing that dramatic, but a low rumble that carries through the vegetation. It means, approximately, I am here. Everything is fine. The forest is normal, and the family hears it, and the family rests on. The deep forest, somewhere in the old-growth forest of the Pacific Northwest, a spotted owl is sitting on a branch in the interior of a stand of enormous Douglas firs. It is the middle of the day, and the spotted owl is a night hunter, so it is resting now. It sits very still, its brown and white spotted plumage blending with the bark of the branch, its yellow eyes half closed. From the forest floor, 5 meters below, it would be almost invisible. The old-growth forest around it is a world of its own. The trees are 700, 800, some of them over 1,000 years old. In a forest this old, the diversity of life is extraordinary, not just in the canopy, where birds and flying squirrels and other arboreal creatures live, but in the standing dead trees, in the fallen logs on the forest floor, in the moss and lichen and fungal networks that connect everything into a single, interdependent system. Old-growth forests communicate through their root systems, connected by mycorrhizal fungi that shuttle nutrients and chemical signals between trees. The so-called wood wide web. A tree in distress can send chemical signals through these networks to its neighbors. Trees can share carbon through these connections with seedlings that are not getting enough light. The forest is, in some sense, aware of itself. The spotted owl doesn't know any of this in the way that we know it, but it lives inside it. It is nested in the cavities of dead old-growth trees. It is hunted in the spaces between these ancient trunks. It is an animal that requires this specific place, this specific, complex, ancient kind of forest to live. Without it, there is no spotted owl. The owl and the forest are one thing, expressed in two forms. The owl sits. Its eyes close. The forest breathes around it. Arctic fox. On the tundra in winter, where the temperature can drop to minus 50 degrees Celsius and the landscape has been reduced to white in every direction, an Arctic fox is perfectly comfortable. Its coat is the finest thermal insulation of any mammal's fur. So dense and so effective that the fox does not begin to shiver until the temperature drops below minus 70 degrees. It is round with winter fat. Its summer gray coat replaced by the white winter coat that makes it nearly invisible against the snow. It trots across the tundra with the neat, quick efficiency of an animal who has no particular reason to hurry because the cold does not bother it. Arctic foxes follow polar bears in winter, scavenging from their kills. A polar bear leaves a great deal of meat, more than it can eat, and the fox waits at a patient distance, dashing in when the bear has moved away, eating quickly and efficiently, caching the excess in the snow to retrieve later. The fox has an extraordinary spatial memory for its cache locations. In spring, when the tundra thaws and the lemmings emerge from their tunnels in the snow, the fox switches to hunting, pouncing through the snow crust with pinpoint accuracy, guided by its hearing, landing directly on prey it is located but cannot see. A fox is resting now, curled into a perfect circle in a hollow in the snow, its tail wrapped around its nose. It is a brilliant white shape in a white landscape, nearly invisible. Its chest rises and falls in the regular rhythm of deep sleep. The wind moves across the tundra in long, cold sweeps. The sky is low and gray. Somewhere far away, a raven calls once and is quiet. The fox sleeps on. The tundra is immense and silent around it. The open ocean, once more. The sperm whale has been diving for 30 minutes. She has descended to 600 meters, then 800, then deeper, following the sonar echoes of her prey. A large squid, something over a meter long, sensing the oncoming whale and attempting to escape with the rapid pulsing jet of its escape response. The whale pursues in the dark. Her echolocation clicks, the loudest biological sounds on Earth, probe the dark water ahead, bouncing back with information about distance and size and movement. She catches the squid. She returns to the surface. She breathes for several minutes, her great lungs exchanging oxygen with the calm efficiency of an animal built for this. Then she dives again. Her calf, too young to dive deep, waits at the surface with other young animals and the females who are not currently hunting. The surface water is warm and quiet. The calf makes small clicking sounds, testing its echolocation, receiving back the shapes of the world as sound. It does not know yet how to use this sense fully. That will come with years of practice. For now, it clicks and listens, building a picture of its world in sound. The horizon is clear in every direction. The ocean moves in its long, ancient swells. The sky above is enormous. A distant ship passes, hull down on the horizon, invisible to the whales but audible in the deep water below. A low, mechanical thrum that the whales have heard before and recognize as neither food, nor threat, nor kind. Just a sound in the water, just something passing. The mother surfaces. She breathes. She finds her calf by sound, by the particular signature of the calf's clicks, the way a parent finds a child by voice in a crowded room. She touches it with her rostrum, and the calf presses against her side. The ocean holds them. The afternoon passes. The water is warm. Dolphins. Night. In the darkness, the dolphins are still moving. They travel more at night in some areas, hunting by echolocation the squid and fish that rise toward the surface after dark. The pod moves together, their bodies in constant, loose proximity. Their echolocation clicks. High-pitched, rapid, precisely directed, illuminating the dark water ahead of them in sound. Dolphin echolocation is far more sophisticated than the sonar we build. A dolphin can discriminate between objects differing in density by as little as 0.5%. It can determine the shape of objects it cannot see. It can find fish buried in sand, locate the boundaries of underwater structures, and track fast-moving prey in complete darkness with an accuracy that no human-built system has yet matched. And yet, alongside this extraordinary technical capability, dolphins are playing. Even at night, even while hunting, a young dolphin is riding the bow wave of an older female, surfing the pressure wave her body creates in the water, a behavior with no functional purpose, except, apparently, the pleasure of it. Two others are chasing each other in slow, looping spirals, not in any serious way, just circling and turning and circling again. The mother, who was resting this afternoon, is awake now, moving with the group, her calf still tucked close. The night ocean is dark and vast and full of life. Below the dolphins, the deep water hides its secrets. The anglerfish and the giant squid and the bioluminescent jellies that drift in their quiet thousands through the abyssal dark. Above the dolphins, the sky is full of stars. The Milky Way is a pale smear across the darkness, and it is reflected, faintly, in the still patches of water between the swells. The dolphins surface, breathe, dive. Surface, breathe, dive. The rhythm is patient and continuous, the ancient breathing rhythm of the sea's warm-blooded children, chimpanzees, grooming. The afternoon in the forest is quiet and warm. The community has fed through the morning, and now they are resting in a loose group, spread through the lower canopy and the large buttresses of a fig tree. The social grooming that happens in these rest periods is one of the ways that chimpanzee society holds itself together. Relationships are built and maintained through grooming. Alliances are reinforced. Tensions are eased. Two old females sit together on a large root and groom each other with the automatic, mutual ease of animals who have been doing this for decades. They have known each other since before they were adults. They were in the same birth cohort. They've raised their children in proximity, and their children are friends. The grooming is so familiar as to be almost unconscious, their fingers moving through each other's fur in the slow, practiced way. Their attention relaxed, their bodies loose. A young male sits nearby, watching. He is perhaps 8 years old enough to be aware of the social dynamics around him, young enough to still be sorting out his own place in them. He watches the two old females with what appears to be genuine interest. He has learned, over his short life, that the social structure around him is worth paying attention to. Who grooms whom tells you something about who values whom. Who avoids whom tells you something about conflict. Who approaches whom after a confrontation tells you something about reconciliation. The political and social life of this community is real and consequential, and he is reading it. Across the forest, someone lets out a soft food call. A low, rhythmic sound that signals something worth eating nearby. Heads lift. A few animals drift in that direction. The two old females pause their grooming, consider, and then, without apparent urgency, follow. The Amazon River. The Amazon River, at its widest, is not so much a river as a fact of geography. A moving body of water so enormous that standing on one bank, the other bank is not visible. It carries more water than the next 7 largest rivers on Earth combined. It is ancient, and it carries within it a diversity of life that staggers the imagination. More species of freshwater fish than any other river system in the world, plus river dolphins, manatees, giant river otters, caimans, anacondas, and countless invertebrates and amphibians that have never been formally described by science. The Amazon River dolphin, the boto, is pink. Not a subtle blush, not a faint suggestion of pink, but genuinely, deeply, unmistakably pink, particularly in the older males. The boto, has a very flexible neck, unlike most dolphins, which allows it to turn its head almost 90 degrees and navigate through the tangled root systems and submerged trees of the flooded forest. It has small eyes and relies heavily on echolocation in the murky river water, where visibility may be only centimeters. A boto is moving slowly through the flooded forest. It is the wet season, and the river has spread for kilometers into the trees, and what is now water will, in the dry season, be dry land again. The boto navigates between the trunks and roots of enormous trees, using its flexible neck and its echolocation to thread through the maze. It is searching for fish in the root tangles that requires the particular anatomy the boto has, the flexibility that allows it to go where other predators cannot. The river around it is dark and warm and full of the sounds of the forest even now. Birds in the canopy above the water level, insects, frogs in the higher tree hollows. The boto moves through this world in its own quiet, deliberate way. The river holds it. The forest extends in all directions. The rain, when it comes, will simply be more water in a world already full of water. African wild dogs. On the open savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, a pack of African wild dogs is resting in the late afternoon shade. They are lean and long-legged and patterned in a mottled mix of black, brown, white, and tan that is unique to each individual. No two wild dogs have the same coat pattern, and this individual variation may allow them to recognize each other easily at a distance. They are lying in a loose pile, legs draped over one another, heads on each other's flanks, completely comfortable in the physical contact. African wild dogs are among the most cooperative hunters in the animal kingdom. They are also among the most cooperative in every other regard. When the pack makes a decision, when to hunt, when to move, where to go, they do so through a democratic process that researchers have documented with some amazement. They vote, not by raising hands, but through a behavior called sneezing. When enough individuals have sneezed, the pack moves. The threshold number of sneezes required to initiate movement depends on the social rank of the initiator. A dominant individual needs fewer sneezes, a subordinate individual more. But the mechanism is genuinely democratic. No single animal simply decides. They also take care of each other in ways that go beyond what is easily explained by simple evolutionary logic. They regurgitate food for pack members who are injured and unable to hunt. They will stay near a sick or injured packmate, sometimes for days, rather than leaving it behind. When pups are born, all adults in the pack contribute to their care, bringing food, babysitting, while the parents hunt, guarding the den. The young dogs, when they grow up, often stay with the pack for years before dispersing, helping to raise the next generation before establishing their own families. The pack has been resting long enough. One of the adults raises its head, and something changes in the atmosphere of the group. A subtle shift, a collective gathering of attention. The dogs begin to rise, to stretch, to nose one another in the greeting ceremony that precedes a hunt. They are waking up. The evening is coming, and the savannah is cooling, and it is time to move. But they are not yet gone. For another moment, they stand in the late light, their large, rounded ears catching every sound, their eyes reading the horizon. The light is gold on their mottled coats. The open sea. Albatross. Far south of any land. In the Psyche eye, waters of the Southern Ocean where the winds are constant and enormous, a wandering albatross is flying. It has been flying for 3 weeks without landing. It will continue for 3 more. Its wingspan, the widest of any living bird, up to 3.5 meters, is designed not for flapping flight, but for dynamic soaring, riding the wind gradients above the waves in a continuous series of swoops and banks, gaining speed, descending, gaining altitude, ascending, using the wind's energy rather than its own muscle. In a single flight, a wandering albatross may travel tens of thousands of kilometers. In its lifetime, up to 70 years, it may travel a distance equivalent to many trips to the moon. An albatross does not need to land to sleep. It can sleep in flight, resting one half of its brain at a time, in the same unihemispheric sleep that dolphins use in the water. It can also rest on the water's surface, floating on its broad, waterproof body, sleeping there for short periods. But its preferred state seems to be flight, a state of continuous, effortless, energy-efficient motion that requires almost nothing of it. The Southern Ocean below the albatross is gray-green and vast, moving in the enormous swells that the long fetch of these open waters allows. There is no land anywhere near. The sky is the color of pewter. The wind is steady and clean and cold, and the albatross banks into it, tilts its great wings, and descends toward the wave tops, and then sweeps up again, up and over, in that long, looping, masterful arc, and is moving south, always south, into the wind. Bonobo. Deep in the forests of the Congo Basin, a group of bonobos is spending the afternoon in the trees near a fruiting fig. Bonobos are the closest living relatives of chimpanzees, and therefore, along with them, the closest living relatives of humans. They share more than 98% of their DNA with us, and yet in some ways, their social life seems more recognizable than chimpanzee society, or at least more immediately comfortable to contemplate. Bonobos are a peaceful species. This is not to say they have no conflict. They do. But conflict in bonobo groups is typically resolved through social contact rather than through aggression. And the result is a society in which serious violence between individuals is rare, and coalition warfare of the kind practiced by chimpanzees has never been documented. The bonobos are not more intelligent than chimpanzees. They are not more capable. They have simply organized their social lives differently. A young bonobo is playing in the fig tree, swinging from branch to branch with the exuberant, almost athletic abandon of a young primate who has not yet grown heavy enough for the branches to feel anything but certain beneath it. It vocalizes as it swings, a series of high, excited calls that the others in the group receive without alarm, because there is nothing alarming about it. The young one is simply happy. It is simply playing. It falls from one branch, catches another without visible concern, swings twice, and hangs there, looking around the forest with round, bright eyes. Below, the adults are feeding slowly, moving through the fig tree with the quiet competence of animals who know exactly what they are doing and have no particular need to hurry about it. The afternoon light comes through the leaves in shifting panels, and the forest is warm, and the figs are ripe. The tide returns. On the Oregon coast, the tide is coming back in. The pools that were exposed at low tide are filling again as the Pacific advances up the shore in its reliable, twice-daily return. The anemones, which contracted during the exposure to the air, are now opening, unfolding their tentacles in slow motion into the incoming water, extending and extending until they are fully open, soft and vulnerable and beautiful. The shore crab that spent the low tide hiding under a rock is now moving carefully across the wet stone, picking its way through the returning water with the sideways efficiency of its kind. The sea stars, patient always, moving in their peculiar, slow, many-footed glide, are beginning to move again. The kelp that was draped flat against the rocks in the air is now lifting, filling with the returning sea, reaching upward toward the surface. The octopus in its crevice is aware of the tide's return. Its skin shifts color slightly, a flush of deeper red, a ripple of pattern across its arms. It waits a moment longer, then it moves out of the crevice with the controlled, considered motion of an animal who knows its environment very well and is never in more of a hurry than the situation requires. The tide pool fills, the water clears, the little world within the rocks returns to its fuller self, and the octopus moves through it, its large eyes taking in every detail of the familiar place, in no hurry at all. The meadow. In a meadow in late summer, where the grass is long and gold, and the wildflowers are going to seed, and the air smells of warm earth and late-season sun, a bumblebee is moving from flower to flower with the slow, loaded weight of a fully provisioned forager. It is heavy with pollen, yellow and orange dust packed into the pollen baskets on its hind legs, and its flight is slightly slower, slightly more careful for the weight of it. It lands on a clover head and works through the tiny florets with practiced patience, its tongue reaching into each one. Bumblebees are not as often recognized for their intelligence as the vertebrates, but they are capable of remarkable things. They can learn tasks through social observation, watching another bee solve a puzzle and then solving it themselves. They can learn tasks that have no analog in their natural world, pulling a string to retrieve a reward, for instance, and they play. Researchers studying bumblebee behavior found that bees, given the option, will roll small wooden balls repeatedly, a behavior with no conceivable functional explanation, no connection to finding food or mating, or any other obviously adaptive goal. They roll the balls because the researchers concluded with careful scientific caution they appear to enjoy it. The bee finishes the clover. It lifts, hovers for a moment in that particular bumblebee hover, suspended in place, wings a blur, and then it turns toward the hive, already knowing the direction, already carrying in its small, precise mind the route home. The meadow is warm around it. The grass bends in the slight evening breeze. The sun is getting low. The bee is going home. Wolves. Evening. The wolf pack is moving through the forest in the evening light, heading toward the river. They move in single file through the deep snow, each wolf placing its feet exactly in the track of the wolf before it. The column of wolves moving with an efficiency that looks almost choreographed. They are not hunting right now. They are traveling, crossing territory, maintaining their awareness of the land they claim, heading toward water. At the river, they break apart. Some drink, some wade in, seemingly for the pleasure of the cold water. The pups, who are now old enough to travel with the adults, explore the riverbank with the investigative enthusiasm of young animals, nosing into logs and holes in the bank, pouncing at shadows in the water. The adults tolerate this with patience. One wolf, a young female who is perhaps 18 months old and see eye, is sitting at the river's edge and looking across. On the far bank, in the trees, something is moving. She watches it with complete attention, still and focused, her ears forward. It is only a deer, a whitetail, moving through the trees cautiously. It hasn't detected the wolves yet. The young female looks back at the rest of the pack. No one else has noticed. She looks back at the deer. She makes no sound. The deer moves behind a stand of spruce and disappears. The young female watches the place. It was for a moment longer, then turns and trots back to the pack. The water moves past. The evening comes down around the forest. Humpback wails, third return. The mother humpback and her calf have reached the feeding grounds. The water is cold and green and full of krill, and she has begun to feed, diving in long, slow spirals and then bursting upward with her enormous mouth open, engulfing water and the krill that fill it, then closing her mouth and pressing the water out through her baleen plates while the krill remain trapped inside. The calf watches from above, making its small clicks, building a picture of what its mother is doing below. In the feeding grounds, many humpbacks are gathered. They do not form the tight social bonds here that they do on the breeding grounds. This is a place of individual feeding, of building up the fat reserves that will sustain them through the winter. But they are aware of each other. They coordinate in a loose way when they find dense patches of prey, sometimes circling below a school of fish, blowing bubbles from their blowholes to create a curtain that concentrates the prey, a behavior called bubble net feeding that requires some level of coordination and has been observed in the same groups year after year. A humpback surfaces nearby. It blows, a huge, dramatic exhale that rises in a column of steam against the cold gray sky, and then slides under again with that effortless arch of its back. Its flukes rise, water streaming from their edges before they slip beneath the surface. The water closes over them as if they were never there. Another follows, and another. The feeding grounds are full of surfacing, breathing, diving whales, and the sound of their exhalations carries across the water in the still morning air, a low, rhythmic, entirely peaceful sound. The calf surfaces beside its mother. They breathe together. They breathe together again. The forest in rain. The rain began in the night and has not stopped. It comes down through the canopy in the Pacific rainforest in layers. First, the heavy drops from the upper canopy, then smaller drops filtered through the understory, then a fine mist that drifts through the middle layers where the ferns are so large they could serve as umbrellas. The ground is wet and dark, smelling of earth and moss, and that particular rich smell of old wood returning to soil. The raven pair in their cedar nest are dry. The nest is deep enough that the rain doesn't reach them, and the female sits low in it with her eggs beneath her, entirely undisturbed by the water that falls around her. Her mate is in the branches above, his feathers fluffed against the chill, perfectly waterproof. Ravens are extraordinarily comfortable in rain. They play in it sometimes, catching drops, tilting their heads to let rain run through their feathers, investigating puddles with the same investigative curiosity they bring to everything. Below the cedar, at the forest floor, a banana slug is moving across the wet moss. It is enormous for a slug, nearly 20 centimeters long, and it moves with the slow, meditative pace of an animal that is in no kind of hurry and has very little reason to be. Its slime trail catches the dim light and gleams. It is heading toward a cluster of mushrooms on a fallen log. It will take a while to get there. The forest receives the rain as it always does, without complaint, with a kind of patient accommodation. The sound of rain here is one of the most complex sounds in nature, filtered through every layer of a mature forest, arriving at the floor as something entirely different from what it was at the top. Not loud, not dramatic, just continuous, gentle, all-encompassing. The sound of the world being watered. Sperm whales. Family. The family group of sperm whales is traveling west. There are 7 of them, 4 adult females, 1 adolescent male, and 2 calves of different ages. They swim in a loose, shifting formation. The calves always kept near the center where the adults can protect them from any direction. They communicate as they travel, in the clicks and codas of their dialect. Sounds that to a hydrophone sound like rhythmic pulses of sound, but that to the whales themselves carry meaning, history, identity. Sperm whale calves are nursed for years, longer than almost any other cetacean. They are also nursed, apparently, by females other than their mothers. In some documented cases, calves have been observed nursing from females who are not their mothers, in what appears to be a genuinely communal nursing arrangement. The adults take turns babysitting calves when the mothers are diving deep. The family functions as a unit of care